Money Buys Time, Buy Your Freedom, Not More Stuff. Written by Ronnie Rowland. Published by Growth Literacy Lounge. What if money weren't just about what you can buy, but about how you live your life? Most people think money is for things: cars, clothes, vacations, gadgets. That's what we're shown, again and again, but there's something more valuable money can give you, something we rarely talk about. Money can buy time. And time, once it's yours again, can buy freedom. This book isn't about how to get rich fast. It's not about hustle or showing off or chasing the next big thing. It's about stepping off the treadmill. It's about asking deeper questions, like why we spend what we do, and whether it's actually making us happy. It's about understanding that every dollar has power, and that power can either make your life feel heavier or lighter. Think about it. Every time you buy something, you're not just spending money, you're also spending time. Time you used to earn that money. The time you won't get back. The fancy car, the big house, the expensive phone, they all come with a price that's bigger than just a number. They cost hours. They cost energy. Sometimes, they even cost peace of mind. But what if you started spending differently? What if, instead of more stuff, you bought more space in your life? More mornings without rushing. More nights without stress. More time with people you love. More chances to rest, to breathe, to choose. That's what this book is really about. It's about turning money into something quiet but powerful. Not a symbol of success, but a tool for peace. Not a badge to show others, but a path back to yourself. In the pages that follow, we'll walk together through a different way of thinking about money. One that's not loud or flashy. One that doesn't need to impress anyone. One that gives you more control, more time, more freedom. Because the truth is simple. Money can buy things, yes, but it can also buy something much better, your life back. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Hidden Cost of Comfort. We are taught to chase comfort like a promised land. A softer couch, a newer phone, a room with a view. Every purchase whispers of ease, of reward, of having made it. Yet comfort, when accumulated without question, becomes a quiet cage. It is not the softness of the cushions that traps us, but the weight of what they cost, not just in dollars but in the unseen hours we trade away. A raise comes, and the world expands. The small apartment becomes a house with a yard. The reliable car gives way to something faster, sleeker. Each step feels like progress, and in some ways it is. But woven into the fabric of these upgrades is a new demand: maintenance, insurance, taxes, time. More meetings to fund the new mortgage, less freedom to walk away. What once felt like liberation begins to resemble a leash. There is a cost we do not measure, hidden beneath the receipt, not in currency, but in calendar space. That new job title may bring applause, but does it come with evenings reclaimed or lost? That vacation might glitter on Instagram, but did it take you 3 months of overtime to afford? Each moment of consumption has its echo in the hours we surrender, often without noticing. It is not that comfort is wrong, but that its price is rarely just money. We mistake luxury for liberty, but liberty is not found in thread counts or kitchen upgrades. It lives in the unstructured afternoon, the spontaneous decision, the ability to choose without constraint. When we spend without reflection, we do not buy things, we mortgage time. We finance a future less our own, where options narrow, and obligations multiply like shadows at dusk. It happens so gradually. A subscription here, a payment plan there. A lifestyle tailored to income that quietly inflates. We find ourselves working not for survival, but for the maintenance of a standard we're too exhausted to enjoy. The irony is piercing: the more we earn, the less we seem to own our lives. What was meant to be abundance becomes upkeep. This is not a call to austerity. It is an invitation to awareness. To see that each dollar is not just a unit of exchange, but a vessel of possibility. When spent with intention, money can be a tool of liberation. When spent reflexively, it becomes a quiet chain. We are free to choose, but not free from the consequences of that choice. The comfort we seek is not wrong, but incomplete. It soothes the body, but often sedates the spirit. The true luxury is not leather seats or fine dining. It is the ability to wake up without dread, to move through the day untethered by debt or duty. To know that your time is your own, not parceled out in 15-minute increments on a digital calendar. We are told to reward ourselves. But the greatest reward is not a purchase, It is permission to say no, to walk away, to rest without guilt, to work because you want to, not because you must. That kind of comfort does not arrive in a package. It grows from choices made quietly, in moments when no one is watching. So before the next upgrade, pause. Ask what it really buys, not what it promises in pleasure, but what it demands in time. For comfort, left unchecked, becomes the most seductive prison, and freedom, once traded, is not so easily bought back. Chapter 2: The Mirage of More. We live in a world that promises fulfillment through accumulation. Every billboard, every algorithm, every glossy image whispers that more is the answer. A better wardrobe, a faster car, the newest gadget, all sold as keys to happiness. But this promise is a mirage shimmering in the heat of our desire, receding each time we draw near. We chase and chase, yet satisfaction always seems just one purchase away. The hunger for more is not born of greed, but of a deeper longing for safety, for recognition, for a sense of control. When life feels uncertain, we reach for what we can hold. When we doubt our worth, we dress it in designer labels. When we feel tired, we soothe with experiences wrapped in luxury. Yet no matter how much we gather, the emptiness returns, because the ache was never in what we lacked, but in what we misunderstood. Consumption is not evil, but it is insatiable. There will always be a newer model, a trendier shade, a better view. The finish line keeps moving, and with every step forward, the cost of staying in place grows steeper. We upgrade, not because we need to, but because the world teaches us that to stop is to fall behind. The treadmill speeds up, and we run harder, convinced that next time, the prize will be real. But the truth is quieter. More is not a destination. It is a loop. And the faster we move through it, the less we notice what we're missing. Relationships neglected. Dreams postponed. Health deferred. We trade them all for symbols of success, never stopping to question who defined success in the first place. We decorate the cage, thinking we're building a palace. What if we stepped off? Not in rebellion, but in inquiry. What does enough feel like? Can we recognize it when it arrives, or are we so conditioned to strive that contentment feels like failure? Enough is not the enemy of ambition, it is its foundation. Without it, we are driven not by vision, but by void. Without it, we mistake movement for meaning. The mirage is seductive because it offers escape, but real escape doesn't lie in more. It lies in clarity, in knowing what matters, and in having the courage to stop when you've reached it. There is profound freedom in choosing sufficiency, not as limitation, but as alignment. When we no longer need to prove anything to anyone, we begin to live. Minimalism is not about owning nothing. It's about being owned by nothing. The fewer distractions we carry, the more present we become. And in presence, we remember what truly satisfies: a quiet meal with someone we love, a long walk without a destination, the ability to breathe deeply without hurry. These moments do not come with receipts, but they nourish in ways consumption never can. This is not a condemnation of beauty or pleasure. It is a reckoning with the cost. Because every yes to more is a no to something else. Time, energy, peace. The trade is rarely visible, but always felt. When we stop chasing, we start seeing. And what we see is often simpler than we imagined. Enough sunlight, honest work, true rest. So the next time the mirage appears, inviting you to believe that more will make you whole, pause. Ask not what it offers, but what it asks in return. Not all purchases are mistakes, but many are misdirections. The path to meaning does not win through aisles or ads. It begins the moment we stop running and look within. Chapter 3: A New Definition of Wealth. Wealth has worn many disguises. It has walked in gold watches and fast cars, in corner offices and thick investment portfolios. It has been paraded through mansions and private jets, dressed in the language of arrival. But beneath the surface shimmer, there is a quiet question that never quite goes away: what does it mean to be truly rich? Not in numbers, but in life? The old definition clings to quantity: how much you own, how much you earn, how much you can spend. But this version of wealth often carries invisible debt. Debt not just of money, but of time, attention, and soul. When everything is measured by how big or how many, we lose sight of what those things cost to maintain, and what they slowly erode while we're too busy managing them. To redefine wealth is not to reject abundance, it is to reorient it, to see that richness is not a collection, but a condition. It is not about how full your house is, but how free your calendar feels. It is not found in accumulation, but in access, to peace, to purpose, to presence. True wealth is space, mental, emotional, and physical. It is the ability to breathe without pressure. Imagine a life where your morning begins without urgency, where your choices are not dictated by paycheck or status, but by what aligns with your values, where you can say no without fear, and yes without guilt. That is wealth, not as decoration, but as direction. It is not loud or boastful. It is quiet and deeply rooted. Money can support this kind of wealth, but only when it is wielded intentionally. Unchecked, it amplifies the noise, but used as a tool for freedom, it creates silence where once there was chaos. Each dollar becomes a vote, not just for what you want, but for who you wish to become. And when that vote is cast for time, for autonomy, for simplicity, wealth begins to look different. It becomes the early walk instead of the late commute, the slow breakfast over the hurried inbox, the option to rest when others rush. Wealth, in its truest form, grants choice, the choice to be deliberate with your life, to trade the constant chase for a quiet, enduring rhythm, and to no longer run after more, but to settle into enough. This new wealth does not shout from rooftops. It doesn't need to. Its power is internal, not performative. It is the clarity to know what matters and the margin to live by it. When others scramble for the next level, you sit with contentment, because you are no longer trying to outrun scarcity, you have met sufficiency, and found it kind. The world may not applaud this version of wealth. It may not see the richness in a free afternoon or a debt-free life, or a calendar that leaves room for wonder, but you will feel it. In your body, in your relationships, in the way your days unfold without strain. Wealth is not just what supports your lifestyle, it is what shapes your lifeline. We are told to build empires, to scale, to stretch, but perhaps the greatest empire is the one within. A life not built on show, but on stillness. A life where money does not define you, but serves you. Where possessions do not impress, but liberate. This is not just a different metric, it is a different mindset. So let the definition shift. Let it become personal, fluid, human. Let wealth be not a fortress, but a field, open wide and yours to wander. Let it hold not just what you have, but what you feel. And in that quiet recalibration, discover that the richest life is often the simplest one. Chapter 4. The Currency of Choice. Every dollar holds a quiet decision. It is not simply a means of transaction, but a message we send to our future selves. It says what we value, what we prioritize, and what we believe about freedom. Yet most of us spend unconsciously, moved by habit or impulse, unaware that each purchase either deepens our autonomy or chips away at it. Money is more than material, it is directional, and its truest power lies in the options it can create. Choice is the essence of freedom. The ability to wake when you choose, to say no to what drains you, to redirect your path without fear of collapse. But choice requires space, and space is funded by financial clarity. Without it, even abundance becomes entrapment, more things to manage, more obligations to sustain, more fear of losing what was gained. What we call lifestyle can become a labyrinth. But it need not be so. When we treat money as a sculptor of time, not just a collector of things, the shape of our lives begins to shift. We start to ask not just can I afford this, but what will this cost me in freedom? The sweater on sale, the upgraded hotel room, the impulsive dinner out, all seem innocent, until multiplied across weeks, years, decades. What we buy casually, we sometimes pay for permanently. The power of financial choice is not in its grand gestures but in its everyday discipline. The skipped impulse buy becomes a margin of time. The money not spent becomes a door left open. Over time, those doors matter more than anything we could have owned. They allow us to change our minds, to protect our energy, to build a life with fewer regrets and more intention. Imagine for a moment, holding the ability to pause, to take a breath before agreeing to a job, a schedule, a commitment, and to choose based on alignment rather than urgency. That breath is what wealth buys. It is not the breathless scramble of scarcity, but the calm inhale of sovereignty. When we have a choice, we no longer live reactively, we live responsively, rooted in our own rhythm. This is the quiet miracle of financial awareness. It does not promise endless indulgence, but something far more rare: agency, the ability to leave when it's time, to rest when you need, to pursue what stirs your soul, not what justifies your paycheck. Every saved dollar is a brick in the foundation of that agency. Every investment in simplicity is a vote for clarity. We often speak of financial independence as a future event, some distant point where work becomes optional and life begins. But independence starts much earlier, in the moment we stop trading control for convenience. In the moment we realize that buying back time is more valuable than any fleeting pleasure. In the moment we understand that the richest person is not the one with the most, but the one who needs the least. Choice is not a luxury. It is a human need, to feel that we can guide the arc of our days, that we are not bound by momentum but directed by intention. And money, when understood rightly, becomes a quiet lever that shifts our reality closer to our values. It does not scream for attention. It whispers possibility. So let each dollar become a reflection, not of what you want now, but of who you hope to become. Let your spending reveal your compass, your saving build your shelter, your investing extend your reach. Because when money is no longer just for things, but for choice, your life begins to open, and in that openness, you find not just options, but ownership. Chapter 5: Living Below the Noise. There is a hum that follows us everywhere. It grows louder with each click, each ad, each unspoken comparison. It is the sound of more options, more upgrades, more things we're told we need. It wraps itself around our days until stillness feels foreign and simplicity feels like lack. But beneath that noise, there is another world, a quieter one. One where freedom lives not above the noise, but below it. To live below the noise is to step off the stage, to stop performing wealth and begin experiencing peace. It is to question the scripts handed down by culture, and to rewrite them in the ink of your own values. It is not about denial or austerity. It is about depth, about trading clutter for clarity, frenzy for flow. In a world that monetizes our attention, simplicity becomes a radical act of ownership. This shift begins not with a purge, but with a pause. The decision to stop reaching for the next thing long enough to ask, what is truly mine? Often, we fill our lives not out of desire, but out of default. We inherit the goals of others. We mimic the spending patterns of peers. We live lives calibrated to external noise, wondering why they never feel quite right. But once the volume lowers, something remarkable happens. We begin to hear ourselves again. Living below the noise means choosing fewer inputs so we can notice deeper truths. It means resisting the rush not by fighting it, but by stepping aside. While others upgrade to impress, we downshift to align. While others seek novelty, we embrace rhythm. The rewards are not instant, but they are profound. We begin to recognize contentment not as a plateau, but as a foundation. Imagine a life where your needs are simple and your joys are not purchased but practiced. A life where you measure progress not in possessions but in peace. This is not the retreat of the disillusioned. It is the advance of the awake. Simplicity is not smallness, it is precision. It allows us to cut through distraction and arrive at what matters most. There is elegance in restraint, a beauty in the intentional absence of excess. Not because we are afraid to have more, but because we no longer need it to feel whole. When we remove the noise, we make room for nuance. We rediscover time for walks, for unhurried meals, for moments that don't need to be shared to be real. We begin to see that what we thought was scarcity was actually space. This path requires courage. It asks us to walk a different rhythm, one less applauded, more internal. To decline the chase for newer and better in favor of quieter and truer. It is not an escape from responsibility, but a redirection of energy. When we live with less noise, we see with more clarity. Decisions come easier. Boundaries hold firmer. And the inner voice, once drowned out, returns to guide us. Living below the noise does not mean living without beauty. It means redefining beauty. It is found in simplicity, in function, in harmony, in possessions chosen with care and used with gratitude, in spaces that invite breath rather than demand attention. It is wealth measured not by volume, but by fit. So let the noise pass above. Let the trends cycle without your chase. Build your life in the quiet, beneath the volume, where depth replaces display, where the measure of success is how aligned your life feels, not how full your closets are. In that stillness, there is something unshakable, not just simplicity, but sovereignty. Chapter 6: Investing in Autonomy. Autonomy is not granted. It is built, quietly, steadily, and often invisibly. It is not a gift from a job, a partner, or a lucky break. It is earned through the compounding of small, deliberate choices, especially those we make with our money. While the world encourages consumption, the wise use their income to purchase something far rarer than luxury: self-direction. And the tool is not complexity, it is investment, not just in markets, but in margin. Every dollar saved is a seed, not just of financial growth, but of future freedom. It says, "I value tomorrow more than I fear missing out today." The saved dollar becomes time later. It becomes resilience in crisis. It becomes space to step back, to recalibrate, to say no. This is the quiet revolution of investing. It's not about wealth as image, but about wealth as independence. But autonomy doesn't come in windfalls. It comes in patterns. In the decision to live beneath your means even when you could reach above them. In the choice to make your future self your business partner, not your afterthought. The money not spent on fleeting thrills becomes capital for long-term freedom. It multiplies silently, giving you back your voice, your time, your dignity. We often imagine investing as technical, a game of charts and jargon. But its deepest function is emotional. It's a conversation with your future, one where you say, "I trust that life is not just about now," and that trust reshapes everything. Suddenly you are not trapped by urgency. You have time to breathe, to wait for the right opportunity, to walk away from what doesn't align. Investing in autonomy is not about retreating from life. It is about designing it. It's having the ability to work when inspired, not cornered. To move, create, rest, on your terms. Without autonomy, even wealth becomes a burden. But with it, even modest means can open extraordinary doors, because autonomy, unlike assets, is not counted, it is lived. This path is quiet. There are no trophies for skipping the upgrade, no applause for staying in the smaller apartment. But over time, these choices build a kind of wealth that no one can take. It's the wealth of saying no without fear. The wealth of choosing a slower morning over a second job. The wealth of never having to explain why you walked away from something that paid well but cost too much of you. And yes, it is slow. Like planting trees, you may not sit under for years, but every contribution, every bit of restraint, every redirect away from unnecessary expense is a vote for sovereignty. Compound interest may be a financial principle, but its truest magic lies in how it buys back life, slowly at first, then suddenly. Imagine autonomy not as something you chase, but as something you quietly assemble. A portfolio of time. A cushion of courage. A ledger of yeses earned through hundreds of quiet no's. It is the architecture of a life where you are not at the mercy of others' timelines or definitions. It is subtle, but sacred. So make it your goal not just to grow wealth, but to grow space, and to fund your own permission. To let your money whisper possibilities rather than scream obligations. Investing in autonomy is not just a financial strategy. It is a philosophy. A way of saying, again and again, I will not spend my freedom for appearances. I will build it, moment by moment, until it is mine. Chapter 7: Quiet Wins. Success does not always arrive with fanfare. More often, it slips in through the side door, unnoticed, uncelebrated, but deeply transformational. In a culture addicted to spectacle, we forget that the most powerful victories are often the ones no one sees. They do not post themselves online. They do not come with applause. They are quiet wins, subtle shifts in behavior that, over time, rewire the shape of your life. It begins with one decision. You walk past the store without stopping. You decline the invitation that doesn't serve you. You make coffee at home, instead of grabbing it to go. Each choice feels small, even insignificant, but layered, they become a pattern. And from that pattern grows a structure, a life built on awareness, not impulse. A life where control is reclaimed not through force, but through consistency. Quiet wins are not about denial. They are about discipline and service of alignment. They ask not for sacrifice, but for clarity. You begin to notice that peace feels better than prestige, that freedom feels richer than flash. You see the game for what it is, not one of accumulation, but of liberation. And every small act of intention becomes an exit from the loop of excess. There is a unique satisfaction in knowing your choices are yours, not influenced by trends, not dictated by fear. When you start stacking these quiet wins, something profound occurs. Your confidence grows, not in your net worth, but in your inner compass. You no longer chase approval. You trust your own direction, and that trust becomes its own form of wealth. These moments rarely draw attention. No one sees you skipping the sale or resisting the scroll. No one notices the extra hour you gave to rest, or the meal cooked from scratch. But you feel the difference. You feel it in the space that opens up inside you, in the calm that settles when your actions and your values begin to align. These are not just habits, they are declarations. They say, I am choosing a different life. Over time, the wins accumulate. You check your account and see a buffer, a margin, not a fortune, but enough to breathe. You look at your schedule and see a pocket of time that isn't booked, isn't rushed. These are signs, not of poverty, but of progress. The life you're building may not look impressive to outsiders, but inside, it feels spacious, sovereign, yours. Quiet wins shift your identity. You no longer see yourself as someone surviving, reacting, conforming. You begin to feel like someone designing, leading, choosing. You understand that power isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It simply is. You walk differently. You speak with more intention. You become a person who honors their time, their energy, their future. There will be temptations. The world will still sing its siren songs of more, faster, now. But you will hear them differently. Not as commands, but as background noise. Because you've found something stronger, the stability that comes from living aligned. And that stability is not a plateau, it is a launch pad. It gives you the foundation to dream not just about escape, but about expansion on your own terms. Quiet wins require no ceremony. They only ask for attention. They are the roots beneath the surface, unseen but essential. And one day, without realizing it, you will look up and find yourself in a life that feels less like reaction and more like rhythm. Not because you chased something loud, but because you honored something true. A life built not on spectacle, but on subtlety. A life rich in what matters most. Chapter 8. Flow over force. There is a kind of effort that exhausts, and a kind that elevates. One pushes through friction, grinding against resistance in the name of progress. The other moves with an inner current, guided not by pressure, but by purpose. This is the difference between force and flow. And when it comes to building a life of freedom, the distinction is everything. Force is celebrated in the world of hustle. Work longer. Sleep less. Sacrifice now for later. The promise is always just beyond reach, waiting on the other side of burnout. But what if the life you want isn't hiding behind exhaustion? What if the key to freedom isn't more struggle, but better alignment? Flow is not lazy, it is leveraged. It's the clarity to know where your energy is welcome, and where it leaks away. When you operate from flow, discipline becomes less about control and more about connection. You're not forcing yourself to save, to invest, to say no, you're doing it because it feels congruent. Because the vision you hold is vivid enough to guide your choices. You no longer wrestle with every decision. You understand your rhythm, and you design around it. This doesn't mean there's no work. But the work becomes different. It stops being a fight against yourself and starts becoming a partnership. You listen. You adjust. You notice what drains and what sustains. And gradually, your life begins to take on a new texture. One where effort is still present, but not punishing. Where productivity is not an escape, but an expression. Financial freedom built from flow is sustainable because it's not a performance. You don't need to prove anything. You're not driven by fear of falling behind. You're anchored in direction. Each act of financial discipline, every mindful purchase, every dollar invested, is not a restriction but a release. You are not giving something up. You are creating more space for what matters. Force often stems from disconnection, from chasing goals that aren't yours, from living to satisfy expectations that never asked what you needed. But flow arises when you return to yourself, when your actions begin to reflect your values, not your fears. When money stops being a weapon of control and starts becoming a channel for freedom, in that space, discipline transforms. You begin to design your systems with grace, automatic savings, simple budgets, clean priorities. These become not rigid structures, but gentle currents. They carry you without strain. You wake up not dreading the grind, but trusting the path. You feel supported by your own choices. That trust is worth more than any raise or return. This approach invites creativity. When you're not constantly correcting course, you can explore. You can innovate without panic. You can take calculated risks because your foundation is stable. Force tightens your world. Flow expands it. It gives you room to breathe, to imagine, to evolve. And in that expansion, something subtle happens. You become more yourself. There is no glory in struggle for its own sake. The world may reward the burnt-out achiever, but peace is its own kind of victory. Flow is not about ease in every moment, but about alignment in the long run. It's choosing the kind of effort that nourishes rather than depletes. It's honoring your energy as your most precious currency. So move with intention, not urgency. Let your money, your work, your time all follow the current of your clarity. Flow over force is not a shortcut. It is a realignment. It asks more of your attention, but less of your willpower. And in that shift, you discover a new kind of momentum, one that doesn't break you, but builds you, steady, silent, and strong. Chapter 9. Patience as Power. In a world tuned to immediacy, patience feels like a forgotten art. We are taught to want now, to act fast, to measure value in velocity. The market rewards urgency, and so we mimic it, rushing through decisions, chasing results, growing uneasy with stillness. But beneath the noise, there is a different kind of strength, one that doesn't shout, doesn't scramble, but waits. Patience is not passivity. It is power in its most stable form. The foundation of freedom is not speed, but timing. Knowing when to move, when to hold, when to let things unfold without interference. This kind of knowing doesn't come from force. It comes from trust. And trust is built in silence, over time, in the slow compounding of decisions made from principle, rather than panic. Financial patience is not delay for the sake of discipline, it is vision with depth. When you invest not just money, but energy, intention, attention, you are planting seeds. And seeds do not grow on demand. They break the surface when the time is right, not when we tap our foot in expectation. To build a life of freedom is to surrender to this rhythm, act with precision, and let the rest gestate. It is to replace the obsession with control with the grace of cultivation. Every dollar saved, every impulse resisted, every plan followed quietly over months or years, is a thread in the fabric of resilience. You may not see its strength immediately, others may not notice, but it builds, not just in accounts but in your character. You become someone who does not chase, who does not fold, who does not confuse motion with momentum. You become grounded. This is the paradox of wealth. The slower you go, the more power you accumulate. Not in the form of spectacle, but in the form of sovereignty. You do not need to react to every market swing, every lifestyle trend, every opportunity that comes cloaked in urgency. You know the value of pause. You know how to wait without fear that you are falling behind. Patience allows you to listen, to cycles, to instinct, to the subtle shifts in your own readiness. It protects you from the costliest decisions, the ones made in haste. It shields you from burnout and invites you to build not for applause, but for durability. Because freedom is not a moment you arrive at. It is a rhythm you learn to keep. Imagine a life where your pace is set by your purpose, not by pressure. Where you can afford to walk away, to think longer, to let a dream ripen without needing to monetize it prematurely. That kind of life is funded not by bold strokes, but by patient strokes, by consistency, by stewardship, by the choice to delay what glitters in favor of what endures. There will be moments when the slowness feels like stagnation. When you wonder if you're missing out, falling behind, doing it wrong. But these are the moments to remember. Transformation is not loud. It is rarely immediate. And its roots always deepen before the bloom. What you're building in patience will one day appear sudden to others. But you will know the truth, that it was earned slowly, wisely, and without compromise. So let patience be your power. Let it guide your decisions, your investments, your responses. Let it anchor you in a world that will always pull at your urgency. Because the strongest structures are never rushed. They are laid brick by brick, breath by breath. And when the time comes, you will move, not in panic, but in precision. Not because you must, but because you're ready. Chapter 10. The Unseen Progress. Progress is not always visible. It does not always come dressed in milestones or marked by applause. Sometimes it lives in silence, in the habits no one notices, in the choices that feel ordinary but accumulate power over time. In the pursuit of freedom, the most important transformations often happen beneath the surface. They do not announce themselves, but they are real, and they are reshaping everything. The world prefers the obvious. It measures success in metrics, timelines, and external proof. But real progress, the kind that leads to autonomy, often looks like nothing at all. It's found in the moment you close a tab instead of shopping, the walk you take instead of spending, the hour you reclaim because you no longer need to fill every gap with productivity. These shifts do not photograph well, yet they are the soil from which freedom grows. Think of a glacier. Slow, steady, vast. From above it seems static. But beneath the surface, movement is constant. Pressure builds, direction forms, and in time, landscapes change. Your inner landscape works the same way. Every uncelebrated decision, every act of restraint, every pause for reflection instead of reaction is carving a new path. One that leads you away from reaction and toward sovereignty. There is power in knowing your efforts are working even when there is no evidence yet. The debt shrinking slowly. The savings building quietly. The mindset shifting subtly from scarcity to stability. No one else may see it. But you feel it, in the steadiness of your breath, in the absence of panic, in the growing sense that you are no longer being pulled by life but gently steering it. This kind of progress is fragile in the beginning. It's easy to overlook, easy to dismiss, because it doesn't offer instant gratification. It requires faith, faith that planting without applause is still planting. That time will reward those who resist the urge to prove and instead focus on becoming. That real change is not a spectacle but a series of sacred, ordinary decisions. When you stop looking for validation and start looking for alignment, everything shifts. You no longer need someone to tell you you're doing well. You know because your days feel different, calmer, lighter. You're not chasing anymore, you're curating. You're not performing success, you're embodying something deeper, ownership of your own time, your own energy, your own path. It's important to honor this invisible progress. To recognize that the life you're building is not delayed just because it's quiet. There is a kind of wealth that shows up first in how you feel before it ever appears on a balance sheet. A wealth of calm, of confidence, of inner spaciousness. That's the wealth you carry into every room, whether or not anyone else can see it. Sometimes the smallest signs mean the most. The absence of dread on a Monday. The decision not to check your account with anxiety. The confidence to say no without needing to explain. These are not small victories. They are indicators that you are no longer bound by the rules that once dictated your life. You are creating a new normal, one choice at a time. So let the progress be quiet. Let it be yours. Let it move like roots, deep, invisible, strong. Trust that the foundation you're building is real, even if it isn't flashy. Because one day the life that felt distant will emerge not suddenly, but as the natural outcome of everything you've done in silence. And it will feel inevitable, not because it was easy, but because it was earned. Chapter 11. Choosing presence over prestige. Prestige is loud. It seeks recognition, applause, confirmation from the outside world. It wants to be seen, to be admired, to be validated. But presence is quiet. It asks nothing but your full attention. It doesn't perform. It simply exists. And in a world that pushes us to climb, to impress, to always do more, choosing presence over prestige is a radical act of self-trust. We are conditioned to chase titles, milestones, status symbols, markers that show we're succeeding by someone else's measure. But in that chase, we often lose the texture of our days. We lose the slow mornings, the deep breaths, the spontaneous joys. We trade them for crowded calendars and constant striving, not because they nourish us, but because they look good from the outside. Prestige promises fulfillment, but delivers pressure. Presence, by contrast, is rooted in the now. It values experience over appearance. It doesn't need to be captured or shared to be real. It is felt in the way your shoulders drop when you exhale, in the depth of a conversation with no agenda, in the quiet satisfaction of doing what matters to you, even if no one notices. Presence brings you back to yourself, while prestige pulls you away. This doesn't mean ambition is wrong. It means the direction of that ambition matters. Are you building for recognition, or for resonance? For the applause of strangers, or the alignment of your spirit? The difference may seem subtle, but it shapes the entire architecture of your life. Prestige demands performance. Presence invites peace. To choose presence is to reclaim your time, your energy, your priorities. It's saying no to the meeting that doesn't need you, the purchase that doesn't serve you, the narrative that doesn't fit you. It's resisting the urge to prove and leaning instead into the freedom of being. It's not less productive, it's more intentional, and from that intention grows a quieter, deeper form of success. Imagine living a life that feels good from the inside, even if no one claps for it. A life where you measure your days not by how much you accomplished, but by how present you were for the moments that mattered. The sunrise you watched without checking your phone, the meal you savored without multitasking, the time you spent not rushing, but simply being. Presence is the foundation of true wealth, because without it, even abundance becomes empty. What good is money if you're too distracted to enjoy what it buys? What good is success if you're too busy chasing the next thing to feel the life you already have? Presence turns earnings into experience. It turns time into treasure. Choosing presence is not always easy. The world rewards visibility, not stillness. But your soul knows the difference. It knows when you're aligned and when you're acting. It knows when you're grounded and when you're grasping. And it whispers gently, "Come back. Be here." Every time you listen, you strengthen your center. You deepen your wealth. You don't need to abandon your goals to be present. You just need to remember who you're building for. And if that answer is you, your truest, clearest, most uncluttered self, then presence will always lead you home. Prestige fades. Trends change. But presence remains, anchoring you to what is real, what is enough, what is already yours. So choose it again and again. In the small moments, in the in-between spaces, in the ordinary rhythms of your life. Choose presence, not because it will impress, but because it will fulfill. And in that choice you will find a kind of wealth that prestige could never buy, a wealth of peace, of purpose, of self. Chapter 12. The Freedom Dividend. There comes a point when the effort transforms into embodiment. When the quiet choices you made in solitude reveal their impact, not in fanfare, but in the way your life feels. The discipline, the restraint, the deliberate steps, all of it converges into something deeper than results. It becomes a state of being. This is the freedom dividend, not just what you earn but who you become. At first, freedom feels like an outcome, a finish line you work toward. But over time, it becomes something subtler, more integrated. It's not just the ability to do what you want, but the absence of what once held you. The mental clutter, the financial strain, the invisible weight of trying to keep up, they fall away. And in their place, something rare emerges, stillness without stagnation, motion without noise. This freedom is not loud. It doesn't demand attention. It is felt in the pauses, in the spaciousness between decisions. It is waking up without urgency, working with intention, resting without guilt. It is knowing that your time is your own, not parceled out by someone else's priorities, and that knowledge changes everything. You begin to notice how much energy is reclaimed when you no longer perform. How much clarity returns when your choices aren't dictated by comparison. How much presence expands when your finances are no longer a source of fear. This is not about perfection, it's about sovereignty, the quiet, consistent sense that you are living from your own center. The freedom dividend also reveals itself in relationships. You no longer need to prove your worth through what you own or how much you earn. You show up fully, because there is nothing left to protect. You listen more. You rush less. The people you love feel you more clearly, because you are no longer diluted by the noise of performance. And perhaps most profoundly, you begin to trust yourself. Not because you've mastered everything, but because you've learned how to return to simplicity, to clarity, to the deeper rhythm beneath the world's urgency. That return is your compass. It allows you to navigate change without panic, success without ego, uncertainty without collapse. This transformation isn't just internal, it touches the fabric of your daily life. You choose work that aligns, not just pays. You spend with precision, not apology. You invest with vision, not fear. Each of these decisions compounds, not only in dollars, but in direction. Your life no longer feels random, it feels designed. There will still be noise, still be temptation, still be moments of doubt, but you will meet them differently. Not with reaction, but with reflection, not from scarcity, but from steadiness. Because you have become someone who knows how to hold the long view. Someone who no longer trades today's peace for tomorrow's illusion. The freedom dividend cannot be measured in net worth alone. It is measured in mornings that begin without dread, in evenings that close with contentment. It is measured in the ability to stop striving and start savoring. In the gentle confidence that comes from knowing you have built a life that feels as good on the inside as it looks from the outside. So this is what money can do, not buy more, but buy back. Buy back your attention, your choices, your time. Buy back the version of you that existed before urgency took over. And in that reclamation you find not just freedom, but fulfillment. Not just space, but purpose. Not just quiet, but peace. You are not what you own. You are what you protect, what you prioritize, what you preserve. And when your life reflects that truth, you don't just have freedom, you are free. Take care and be well.